Hello and welcome to the Feminine Vitae podcast. In this series, we're speaking to women sharing their experiences with different reproductive health conditions. Thank you for joining us.
Hello.
Hi, this interview is for Feminine Vitae magazine. We're a startup and we're running a series of interviews with women with different reproductive conditions and issues. So other women who are affected by these issues can listen in and find out more tips about what they can do to manage their symptoms and their well-being. To start off with, could you just give us a little bit of information about yourself, your name, your age and your occupation, just so we can get to know you a bit better?
Yeah, so my name's Jess Lee. I'm 38 and I live in West Yorkshire and I work in export sales.
How long have you been trying to conceive for?
Altogether, it's just under 4 years now. So we started trying naturally around about Christmas time, 2014. And nothing happened after trying for quite a while, kind of off and on in 2015 and 2016. And then at the end of 2016, we went to the GP with our concerns and we were referred to fertility clinic. And then we received the diagnosis. So it was actually on the 21st of December 2016 of azoospermia, so 0 sperm in my husband's sample. At the time, they couldn't tell us what was wrong, so we had to wait through a series of appointments the next year. So that was quite a tough Christmas. And then finally, we got the diagnosis confirmed in about April 2017 that my husband had congenital bilateral absence of vas deferens. So, and it's because he's a carrier of the cystic fibrosis gene. He's got like a mutation, which means that he produces sperm, but he hasn't got the tube to carry it out of his body. So there's absolutely no way we can ever conceive naturally.
What are you going forth with at the moment then?
Right, well, so far we've done 3 fresh ICSI cycles that have all failed, and we've had 1 frozen embryo transfer that's also failed. So the last cycle of treatment that we had was in August this year. So what had happened was my husband had a surgical sperm aspiration after the screening. So for myself as well, I had to be screened for the cystic fibrosis gene to see if I was a carrier. So if I had been a carrier, there would have been a 1 in 4 chance of our baby having cystic fibrosis and, you know, being very ill and having a life expectancy in probably their mid-30s. But I'm not a carrier, so we went ahead with the treatment. And yeah, as of today, we've just had a little bit of a break. We're in the process of changing clinic and we're looking to start with Access Fertility for 2 cycles, and we're going to be starting again another fresh cycle at the end of January next year.
Okay.
So quite soon, yeah.
So how are you feeling about this process?
So far, I mean, you mean how do we feel about starting again, or how?
Yeah, I mean the whole thing. You said you've gone through a few years of trying and trying again. Are you feeling positive about it? Are there any concerns that you're having?
It's a scary thing to sort of consider doing it again when you've failed.
Yeah.
You know, when you've already failed multiple times, you don't have such much optimism anymore. And we know the statistics. I mean, you know the statistics when you start out, but I think everybody when they do the first cycle thinks, oh, it's definitely going to work for us the first time. And then obviously when it doesn't, reality bites hard. But then to have to go through that, you know, more than once, it doesn't fill you with any hope. And there's no guarantee, again, that it is going to work. So it's a real kind of shot in the dark. And yeah, I don't think you can be optimistic really anymore when you've had failed treatment like we have. But
No.
You do it nonetheless, and we're doing it nonetheless because, you know, we want a chance and we don't have any other option. We want our own baby. Myself and my husband, we have to have IVF, and that's always been the case from, you know, the day that we were diagnosed.
Of course, yeah. So going through all of this, how does it affect your quality of life?
Yeah, well, I mean, I feel like my life, but more specifically my outlook on life, I think has changed quite a lot since we were diagnosed. And I think I really started to feel that the most after the first failed transfer. So I used to be way more optimistic and positive about life in general. But I think the infertility diagnosis has just made me feel strongly every single day that life really can be very unfair. So, I mean, I consider myself and my husband to be, decent, hard-working, honest people who love each other very much. And we also care deeply for all our family and friends. I think we'd make great parents. Everybody close to us has told us the same over and over again, whilst we navigate this horrible treatment, trying and failing again and again. And so the fact that this disease and the current limitations of IVF is preventing us from achieving our dream of having a child or family of our own, it's always there. It wakes me up in the middle of the night. It's the first thing I think of every morning and the last thing I think of at night. It's living in complete uncertainty and, having no control over this real big important dream that you want so much. And living like that, it just wears you down. And then, you add in a big dose of sort of shame and guilt, and for me a huge amount of anger and frustration. You can imagine how that impacts very negatively at times on my quality of life. Dreaming of having a baby with my husband, trying naturally for ages and then it not happening, then being diagnosed and failing repeatedly then at IVF, in a world where motherhood is, dare I say it, fetishised by the media and also by, I think, the society that we live in. And then having to see all our peers and some family members move on to that next important stage of life of becoming parents or grandparents, when we're just like trapped at a point in time, it feels like, where we just don't want to be anymore. It's incredibly difficult every day. And it makes me really sad as well to realise how much my self-esteem has taken a battering by having gone through failed cycles. It's just so hard on pretty much every level that you can imagine.
Yes.
And I can have good days where I don't think about it very much or I'm distracted, but then triggering things will happen that I just can't ever avoid. For example, seeing a pregnant woman if I just walk down the street, or a friend, a close friend sharing photos of their kids in like a friends group chat on WhatsApp, or TV adverts showing happy families. It's just relentless. And before I know it, my resolve of that morning to try and have a good day and not let it get me down, which I try to do every day, is just smashed to pieces, and I've not got control over those feelings when they come. So I can be just like sobbing in the cereal aisle of the supermarket, feeling all that fear and shame and anger and frustration, and it's just overwhelming. That's the reality of living this life, And I think if we're in the middle of a cycle, and especially after a failed cycle, then for me that stress and all the other emotions and anxiety is just off the scale. I'd never experienced anything like that level of stress in my life until we got diagnosed and then, started going through it. And I've really, really struggled at times to cope with the process so far. But so far, I've been strong enough and I've had enough support to keep going. And we plan to keep going next year a bit longer because, we want our dream, the same dream as everyone else who's not been diagnosed infertile, this basic fundamental human right, which is just to have a family.
Yeah, I mean, with this massive emotional impact that it's had on your life, do you think that this has affected your work performance and your plans for the future in that aspect?
My work performance, I'd say on the whole, it's not affected it all that much. I'm lucky that I've got a job which, I work from home. My employer has been, really amazing throughout this whole process. And I've been very open and honest with them, from the day that I told them that we were going to be having IVF treatment. My manager, everybody has been great. They've kept it quite quiet. I asked for it not to be public knowledge. But my manager in particular has just been amazing. They've given me time off paid to attend all my appointments. There's never been any stress or pressure at all from them. So I consider myself lucky. I read a lot about other people's experiences and it's not always, as rosy for other people. We've talked about career progression. I have my appraisal every 6 months, every 12 months, and they've never put more pressure on me to kind of, I don't know. I think if I wanted to go for a big promotion, it's unrealistic to think that you can put in the effort and take that big step in your career, which might be stressful, when you already got so much stress going through IVF and just being infertile.
Yeah, we've heard a lot from other women about how their workplaces aren't as supportive. So
Yeah.
I guess it's a great help to you that you do have somewhere that will actually support you in that way.
Yeah, they're amazing. To me, it's just one less thing to worry about, because I love my job. I really do love my job, and it's been a cause of stress to me as well. Knowing that going through this treatment, worrying about the impact that it could have on my career, and to be able to be open about it at every step, really talk about, it's personal stuff with a male manager. It's not always the most comfortable conversation, but he's been amazing. So yeah, I consider myself really lucky.
Yeah, that's really good that you're getting support in that area of your life.
Yes.
So in terms of yourself, what routine have you adopted when you're going through this process of trying to conceive, and to do with your well-being in general in that time? You said it's a very stressful, emotional time.
Mm.
What kind of strategies do you use to help you deal with that?
I think learning sort of the self-care and, how to kind of cope with it, it's been a learning process. It's been a learning curve for me. Before I started the treatment, I thought I was pretty good at self-care, but I've really had to kind of adopt some new techniques to try and get me through it. Preparing for it physically is one thing, and emotionally is the other. Obviously the two, are combined, but for me, when we did the first cycle, I had a poor response to the stim drugs. And so basically it was a little bit touch and go whether I was going to make it to egg collection, because basically I went through to egg collection with only 3 follicles on my first cycle, which was a big shock. We didn't expect that at all. So sort of FSH tests and, preliminary tests that had been carried out, didn't show that was going to happen. And so I kind of, from that point forward, I was really plunged into this. The stress went through the roof, at that point. And so I hadn't really, up till then, I'd not prepared so much physically. I don't think I'd given it that much thought, I didn't really change my diet all that much. I didn't really reduce all that much the amount of alcohol that I was consuming. But after that first cycle and the issues that we had, it was like, right, okay, now I need to, what can I do to improve my egg quality, improve our chances, because the first cycle was a flat out failure and it didn't go very well at all. So I read the book, It Starts With the Egg by Rebecca Fett, I think her name is. And then so after that I started taking some new supplements to change my diet. So I started taking Biquinol, which is like a fast absorbed version of CoQ10. So I'm taking 600 milligrams a day of that. Folic acid and vitamin D. I take a multivitamin, and then I take NAC as well every day. So that's just like the supplement side. Diet wise, I'd already lost 1.5 stone prior to starting the treatment, but that was for my wedding. But I guess it helped in bringing my BMI down to a healthy level. So it's kind of focusing on diet, cutting out sugar, not drinking alcohol. I've been caffeine free, and this is from a real espresso addict prior. Completely cut out caffeine. And that's the kind of physical thing. I exercise. I always had exercise regularly, but coming up to a treatment cycle, I kind of maybe did it less intensely, just doing walks rather than hammering it at the gym or whatever. And then kind of emotional side, I started seeing a counsellor, specialist fertility counsellor. I think a bit late for me, really. I could have started earlier. I think I waited until I was at crisis point and really, really struggling to cope before I actually, sought help from a counsellor. But I also saw an acupuncturist, and so this is a lady that does hypnoacupuncture. So the needles go in, and then she puts you into a state of hypnosis and tries to reinforce positive thoughts, positive mindset, whilst you're in this state of deep, hypnosis relaxation. Found that really beneficial, just to kind of give me a reset and make me feel a bit more level-headed. Even if it just lasted for 2 or 3 days, I found that was a good thing to do. And then meditation, I always did kind of dip in and out of it, but now it's something that I do every single day. So every night I do some relaxation exercises. That's kind of following on from the hypnoacupuncture, that's kind of stuff that she's taught me as well. But now I can do it. I can put myself in a state of relaxation, which is helping me get off to sleep at night as well. You know, breathing exercises, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I imagine that helps a lot with the emotional impact of going through all of these cycles.
Yeah, I mean, it's like a toolbox. You kind of dip in and out of all these things, and, you know, some days some things might work, whereas other days they might not. It just depends on what's going on at the time,
definitely.
really.
I mean, you mentioned getting support from a counsellor. Do you get support from anyone else, either sort of your friends or family, or any online groups that you're part of?
Yeah, so, well, I mean, the number one support, or the number one person that I've had support from, and who is usually gives the best support in terms of what I need at that time, is my husband. So throughout the whole process, you know, he's been absolutely incredible. So, you know, that's really, you know, it's us two in it together, and we've really kind of just clung on to each other when it's been the hardest, and we've been there for each other. So to me, that's like the most important thing. I can speak openly to him about all of my feelings, even the real nasty, ugly stuff, that's probably, you know, it's not appropriate to kind of voice to a lot of other people. We are honest with each other, and that's really important, because that's where I find my support, in being able to talk about stuff. Even if he doesn't agree or feel the same way at that time, you know, we can be open, and I think that's really important. I don't know if everybody else going through it has the same relationship, you know, going through treatment. It's so much pressure and it's hard. But yeah, he's been really ace. And then friends and family, not the people that I necessarily thought at the start of the process would be the ones would be most supportive. So I've been surprised there. And then obviously also like the counsellor that I've been seeing, who's amazing. Online TTC community, so there's like a local support group, there's a Facebook group from the clinic. But yeah, various kind of online groups I dip in and out of. People like, I don't know, Gateway Women, Dovecote, you know, Fertility Network UK. You know, there's various things that I'll dip in and out of. Sometimes it's just like an inspiring quote that will give you a little boost. And yeah, there's advice and support out there if you need it, but it took me a while to really seek it out, to find what I needed.
Yeah.
And I think, yeah, if that was advice I'd give to other people going through this, would be, you know, seek help sooner rather than later. And I heard that before I started and thought, yeah, and I didn't actually do it. But yeah, having got to where I am now, you know, we're 2 years into this journey, and we're still more or less at square one, really, in terms of, you know, getting pregnant and having a baby. I think it's just important, sooner rather than later.
Yeah, sure. I think early intervention with that kind of thing is always a good idea.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
Is there anything else you'd like to say about your journey, or just, I don't know, anything you want to clear up about it?
No, I just think, you know, another piece of advice maybe for other people would be, you know, if you're struggling to conceive naturally, if it's taking time, don't delay going to your GP.
Yeah.
For us, we just, until the day that we heard that nurse say to us, you know, I'm sorry, guys, there's no sperm at all in your sample. There's absolutely zero. We never, in a million years, dreamed that we would be in this situation. We just assumed blindly, like everybody else, that we wouldn't have any issues in conceiving. And so, you know, it was such a shock. But for us, I mean, everybody's different, but our situation, my husband was infertile from the day I met him, you know, and so for us to seek help sooner, it would have speeded up the process. And because from when you get diagnosed, certainly if you go through the NHS, it's a long process, you know, you're not going to be starting treatment straight away. It could be months and months of tests and, you know, signing forms and so I think, you know, looking back on it, for my own journey, I wish that we had got help sooner, you know, and sort of pushed to be taken seriously more by the GP, because I had already raised concerns when I was 34 35, nearly 36, and yeah, the GP, even though we'd been trying 6 months, she just said, look, you know, do you live together? I said, yeah. She said, well, keep doing what you're doing, and come back in 6 months if nothing's happened. But for us, because we had severe male factor, you know, really, it's a shame that they don't immediately sort of do any investigations into my male partner. That would have changed you know, we might have started our first cycle 12 months sooner than we did. So,
yeah.
yeah.
I mean, hopefully, sorry, what were you going to say?
No, go on, it's all right.
Hopefully anyone who's listening to this or reading it in the magazine, if they're experiencing similar issues, this will kind of prompt them to intervene a little bit earlier, and they can start getting the help that they need earlier on in the process rather than it taking them a long time.
I think it's common though. I think people put it off, you know, because they just don't think, you know, you think, I'll give it 1 more month, surely it'll be next month, because that's what you see. That's the experience of pretty much everybody you know. You know, you don't necessarily, when you start out trying to conceive, know that many people who've been diagnosed with infertility or gone through IVF, you know, so it doesn't, there might, unless you've got a friend who's gone through it, who might have been, you know, telling you, look guys, you should go and get checked out, you just might not necessarily do it. So yeah, I think that the most important thing, I think, for anybody else if they're starting out, apart from, you know, get help soon, seek out support soon, is just to realise that once you kind of engage as well with the TTC community, there is a massive amount of support out there. There's a lot of resource out there, and to be able to connect, you know, it enables you to connect with other people who are going through the same thing, and if that can reduce the kind of the isolation that you feel and any sort of shame, and, you know, help you with those really, really difficult emotions, then, you know, you should draw on those resources, because it's going to help you survive the experience. And some days it does feel like survival, you know. So yeah, I'm not going to lie, it's hard. It's the hardest thing that I've ever been through. But, you know, there are things out there that can help you cope with it.
Well, thank you for speaking to us today, Jessica.
My pleasure.
Yeah, it's been a really great interview to have in our magazine and blog. Thank you for listening to this podcast by Feminine Vitae. If you'd like to find out more about the different conditions we've covered and learn more about how to improve menstrual and reproductive wellbeing, please visit our website, femininevitae.co.uk.